Well, good morning, everybody. Seeing as I'm talking about work, I thought I'd introduce myself by telling you what I do at the moment and what I used to do. I'm a teacher these days. I'm a science teacher at Bluecoat School. And before that, I was an electrician. There are some types of work that I like to do. I like building things. I like doing the grocery shop. There are some things that I don't like doing. I don't like tidying after myself. My wife will tell you more about that. I don't like paperwork. Why don't you, if you're happy to, just turn to someone around you and tell them one thing that you like doing that you could consider work. Do it now. You've got 20 seconds. All right. Lovely stuff. Thank you. You can... Oh, I can tell you want to carry the conversations on. Please do after the service with tea and coffee. Now, I want you to imagine, if you can go to my first slide, Jack. I want you to imagine that an alien lands in your garden. That's the title slide. The one after that. An alien lands in your garden. And it's your job to take the alien around with you and to explain what it's like being on Earth. And the alien asks, what do human beings, what do they spend their time doing? And so you explain that most people have got a job, and you say that 5 days out of every 7 adults wake up, go to work, stay there all day, come back home to eat, and then go to bed before doing it all again. And most people do this for about 40 years, and we call it work. Wow, says the alien. That's amazing. People must really love going to work. And when you think about it, it's astounding that so many people spend so much of their life in work that perhaps they don't really like. You can go to the next slide. There's a study that found, is an Australian one, hopefully it's different here, that found that 78% of people, 4 out of every 5, get the Sunday night blues, and they don't want to go to work, and maybe they dread it. And 62, more than 3 in 5, really feel strongly that they dread Mondays. And now I'm going to show you a quick tongue-in-cheek response to that on the next slide. Monday's the worst day of the week? False. It's Sunday. Anticipation of Monday is worse than Monday itself. And I think actually sometimes we just have the wrong mentality. You can go to the next slide. Now, we're going to think about how we should think about work. And by the way, when I'm talking about work, I'm not just talking about what you do for a job. We can all think about the kind of work that we do in our lives, whether we're employed or not, whether we're children, retired, doesn't matter. Work is anything that requires effort. So studying in school or university is class work, but if you bring it back to your house, then it's homework. Vacuuming the carpet or washing the dishes is housework. Going for a jog is work. Hosting a party is work. And sometimes getting out of bed takes so much effort that we've got to consider that doing work too. So we all do work. We all put in effort. We're going to start with a bit of Bible. Right at the beginning, go back a page, right at the beginning, when God made the earth, he planted a garden, and he made a man, and he put the man, Adam, in the garden. And when he put him in the garden, he told him to work it and tend it, or take care of it. This is a picture of perfection. This is how God wanted the world to be. So work belongs in a perfect life. God also establishes the pattern of work and rest. So we're not supposed to work all of the time. And in the Bible, you'll find even more teaching about rest, often referred to as Sabbath, than you will on work. However, if you turn the page in Genesis to Genesis chapter 3, on the next slide, we find that sin enters the world, and the perfection that used to be is broken. And part of the consequences or the curse that we read in the Bible that came because of sin is that work becomes horrible. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life. And work's not always productive. The ground is going to produce thorns and thistles rather than vegetables like the marrows, which I believe are free to take on your way out. And you will eat the plants of the field because you've worked so hard for them. By the sweat of your brow will you eat your food. There are other parts to the curse, like the rest of that passage talking about death and pain in childbirth, and other parts to it as well. The perfection that was is no longer. Good work is important. I think it's important because it's godly. It's like God. God works. In it, we imitate God, who calls us to work. I think good work is service. In it, we can meet the needs of other people. I think good work is loving. It allows us to fulfill the commandment of God to love our neighbor and to look after the earth. It stretches. In it, challenge. The Bible, there's loads of stories. And then had to catch 2 of every kind of animal, including crocodiles. Now that sounds like hard work. 5 of some, 7, 5, more than 2 of some animals. Now, having got us all hopefully on the same page, or at least hopefully got you listening, I'm going to make 4 main points about work. And because 4 points is one more than anyone has the right to make in a talk, I'm going to attach an animal to each point, which will hopefully help you remember and make it slightly fun. So we're going to have 4 different animals to keep us on track. You can go to the next slide. I wonder what you think the barriers are to finding purpose and enjoying your work. Lots of people might think that work is meaningless. What's the point? What's the point in mowing the lawn? It's only going to grow back again. Point number 1 again, apparently. Sorry, back on the same slide. I don't know why they're all point 1. Some people are lazy. Well, everybody's lazy, actually, I think. Certainly there's times in my life when I've been very lazy. And just think, do you know what? I don't want to do work. I'd rather not. Point number 1. Sometimes we're selfish. If you want me to do that work, I want to know how I'm going to benefit from it. What's in it for me? And sometimes comparison. I look at them, and they've done a small amount of work, and they seem to have got loads of money, and their life seems to be like they're getting a better deal than I am. And I think these are common problems that at times plague all of us. I see symptoms of these things in my own life, in the life of my students, in the life of my friends and family. I think humans struggle at times with these issues. And because I'm a Christian, I think that the Bible holds the answers to life's issues and problems, and it's the Word of God. And in the Bible, God chooses to robustly respond to these struggles. So we're going to take them one at a time with an animal. Animal number 1 is a goat. You can go to the next slide. You'll find out why in a minute. Sometimes, if we're trying to find the meaning behind work, or we're trying to avoid doing work, we might deceive ourselves and say there's no point mowing the lawn, the grass is only going to grow back. But really, we're just trying to get out of something we don't want to do. For lots of work, there are obvious benefits. If we read the wisdom of the Proverbs, which are the 2 top paragraphs in white text, we see that work brings wealth rather than poverty. It brings a good reputation rather than disgrace. And it brings power rather than oppression. But it's something else I want to talk to you about, which is a less worldly benefit to work. When Jesus is teaching his disciples, he talks about the day of judgment, when he says that people will be divided up into two groups, the righteous and the unrighteous, just like a shepherd will divide up the sheep from the goats. He says to those on the right on this judgment day, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I," Jesus said, "was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." And the righteous people will say, "What? When did we do that? We've never done that to you, Jesus." And the answer will come, "Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. You put in the work to help other people, and it was like you were working for God." But the other group of people who didn't lift a finger to help the prisoners, the sick, the hungry, the thirsty, do not be like them, because he says to the people on his left, the goats, all those who didn't work for the benefit of others, that they would be banished, separated from God forever. So ask yourself, why am I doing this work? Is it good for me? Will someone else benefit from it? And search for some meaning in what you're doing. Next slide. Laziness. There's a saying that some people say, hard work pays off later. Laziness pays off now. So says the frog on his lily pad, sitting around catching flies. It won't surprise you to find that the Bible is blunt in its warnings against laziness. The Roman Catholic Church, amongst others, teach about the famous 7 deadly sins, which are kind of extrapolated from the Bible. And one of the sins is sloth, which is usually described as avoiding your responsibilities, particularly spiritual practices like praying and reading the Bible. Today's first reading that Sue read for us from the second letter from Paul to the church in Thessalonica, it was highly critical of people who are idle. I'm going to read the same passage again from the Message version. So Paul is writing this letter to the church, probably because some of the people there are being really lazy. And he says this: "Our orders, backed up by the Master, Jesus, are to refuse to have anything to do with those among you who are lazy and refuse to work the way that we taught you to. Don't permit them to freeload on the rest. We showed you how to pull your weight when we were with you, so get on with it. We didn't sit around on our hands expecting others to take care of us. In fact, we worked our fingers to the bone, up half the night moonlighting so you wouldn't be burdened with taking care of us. And it wasn't because we didn't have the right to your support. We did. We simply wanted to provide an example of diligence, hoping that it would prove contagious. Don't you remember the rule that we had when we lived with you? If you don't work, you don't eat. And now we're getting reports that a bunch of lazy good-for-nothings are taking advantage of you. This must not be tolerated. We command them to get to work immediately. No excuses, no arguments, and earn their own keep." Friends, don't slack off in doing your duty. If anyone refuses to obey our clear command written in this letter, don't let him get by with it. Point out such a person and refuse to subsidize his freeloading. Maybe then he'll think twice. But don't treat him as an enemy. Sit him down and talk about the problem as someone who cares. May the Master of Peace himself give you the gift of getting along with each other at all times, in all ways. May the Master be truly among you. Now, obviously, the Message version does sometimes exaggerate things or have one particular perspective, but I think it did illustrate that Paul, writing the letter, is quite anti-laziness. There's a caveat to this. There's been times in my life, and there will be times in yours, when you're not able to work. You're poorly, or you can't get out of bed. You can't do the job that needs to be done. And that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about people who are not willing to work. They're not willing to try. They're not willing to do the things that they can do. I'm going to leave you with one more verse on this. Colossians chapter 3, 23 and 4 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with your whole being, for the Lord and not for men, because you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as your reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving." So don't be like a goat, and don't be like a frog. Number 3, selfishness. Did you know there's a type of penguin called the Adelie penguin, and they're really selfish? When the whole group of penguins get together and they want to go for a swim, maybe catch some fish, what they do is they push one of the penguins off into the sea, and they see if he gets eaten by a killer whale or a polar bear or whatever animals they are. And they just have a look and see, is he going to survive, is he not? And if he gets eaten, they all stay on the ice ledge. And if he doesn't get eaten, then they all jump in. Of course, humans show lots of the same kind of selfish behaviors. Well, maybe not the same, but similar. And many people will be reluctant to work hard without the promise of reward. Those who do work hard might be tempted to pile up their pay and store up their treasures on earth. But that's a talk for another day. So how should we view work? Well, the second reading we had today from Philippians chapter 2 told us, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others." Don't be like an Adelie penguin. Work hard for the interests of others. What does that look like? Do some charity work. Be a school governor or volunteer at church. If you've got a friend who is a hairdresser or a painter decorator, instead of asking them for mates rates, pay more than what they charged you. Instead of being selfish, look to the benefit of others. Don't be like an Adelie penguin. Number 4, next slide. Comparison. Comparison. Maybe someone else at the office has got a shiny new car. Maybe you've just found out that your coworker got the promotion that you were expecting. Maybe you feel like your friends are more successful than you. Maybe you're like this chipmunk, and the more food, no matter how much food you can cram into your cheeks, your friend has always got something that you want. I'm going to tell you a quick story that comes from Matthew chapter 20. There was a landowner. He had a farm and he grew grapes on his farm. And one morning he went to the marketplace at 6 a.m. and there were lots of men standing around the marketplace looking for work. Now, aside from all the problems of like casual labor and stuff like that, we're going to say that he spoke to the men and said, "Do you want to come and work on my farm? If you do a day's work, I'll pay you £100. And they said yes. So he took them back to the farm and they started picking grapes. A bit later at 9 o'clock in the morning, he went back to the marketplace and he found more people who weren't up at 6 o'clock standing around waiting for a job. And he said, "Do you know what? Come to my farm, work for the day, I'll give you £100. They said, "Okay, we'll do it." Took them back to the farm and they started picking grapes. He went back at midday and he found that some lazy people had just got out of bed And he said, do you know what? You come back to my farm, work on the farm, pick the grapes, and I'll pay you a day's wages. He went back at 3 o'clock, and then at 5 p.m., half an hour before the end of the working day, he went to the marketplace and he found some people sitting around saying, anyone want to give me some work? And he said, look, come to my farm and I will set you to work, and at the end of the day, I'll pay you what's right. So at the end of the day, he was back on the farm, and all the workers, those who'd worked half an hour, those who'd worked 5 hours, and those who'd worked a full day, were standing around waiting to get paid. And he went up to the people who started work at 5 p.m. and only did 30 minutes, and he gave them £100. And the people who'd been working all day rubbed their hands and thought, wow, if they're getting £100 for half an hour, we're going to get a mountain of money. And he went through all the different workers, and he paid all of them £100. Now, the people who'd worked all day, they grumbled when they got their money. And they said, it's not fair. Why is it that they're getting paid £100 for doing 30 minutes work when I worked all day? But the landowner, he answered them this. I'm going to read it straight from the Bible, Matthew chapter 20, verse 13. I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for £100? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? Theodore Roosevelt supposedly said, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think he's right. If something good happens to someone else, that does not mean that something bad has happened to me. I should celebrate with them, not mope for myself. I think on the next slide, we've got a summary of those. Are you envious because I am generous? Now, are we closer, having thought about this, are we closer to finding purpose in all of our work? Maybe we are, maybe we're not. But hopefully you can see the value in using a biblical consideration, we've jumped all over the Bible this morning, of why and how to work and how to combat some of the barriers to good work. Having said all of that, there is a different pitfall that we must also avoid. For some people, work becomes all-consuming. It becomes our source of identity, something that we become dangerously proud of or ambitious to the detriment of others. So if you're thinking, 4 animals is not quite enough, Ben, I wish you'd given me 5, then here's one more. Don't be as proud as a peacock. I'm going to pray. You can look at the points on the board if you want to remind yourself what we've thought about this morning. Let's pray. God, we thank you for the opportunities that we have to work. We thank you for the skills, the time, and the energy that you've given to us. Help us to see that you are sending us out to bless the people around us. And deliver us, O God, from laziness, from selfishness, from comparison, and from the love of money. Lift us from the miry clay and set our feet on the rock, for you are a firm foundation.